Okay, so this is my review of the Urban Worm Bag. I've had this for, maybe not quite a year. I think since November of last year. It's June now. So, so several months. And I wanted to share my experience and some little tips. So, the first thing is why buy something if you can construct it yourself. Might be a question you're asking, or why would you construct it yourself if you can just buy it? So I'm going to answer both of those questions. So I've been sort of forced to create a lot of the things that don't exist. So I wanted a certain type of self-watering planter. I had to kind of invent it if I wanted to use it. So in the process of doing that, I quickly realized that anytime you make something yourself, you're making a commitment to continue building that thing. If it can fall apart, you can make mistakes, all kinds of stuff, and it can be much more expensive, much more time consuming, a lot more frustrating. So just be aware of that aspect of it, especially if you're like me and I had no handyman skills or anything like that. It was a struggle bus from day one. So what that means is, I think it depends on your context, but in this case, I had so many other projects that I was working on that were already taking up way too much time and were too expensive from my mistakes, that I knew if I wanted to add a worm bin to my life sooner rather than later, it was going to make way more sense to just buy something that will work. So I researched a bunch of different things and I came to the Urban Worm Bag. And what's handy about this worm bag is it's completely zipped. Yeah, so that's what's handy about this is it's pretty much totally sealed and zippered, which protects it from different things. And even if there are flies, they're not going to come out until you unzip, and then you're able to sort of deal with it in a controlled way, which is awesome. So I wouldn't necessarily call this the urban worm bag. I would probably call it the suburban worm bag, because realistically, I have an apartment. I'm really lucky in that I was able to get this apartment with an attached garage, which is amazing. But would I really want to look at this in the middle of my living room or in my bedroom? No. I mean, this is not pretty. So, so I would probably call this the suburban. If you have a garage, then this works really well. If you have something that's really out of the way, maybe a laundry room that's roomy in an apartment, that's pretty unrealistic. So probably my first critique of this, what I would love to see is something that looks pretty and that is not so big. Because most of the time with apartment dwellers, and I'm really coming from that view, for apartment dwellers, this is really wide. We don't have a lot of horizontal space. We have usually plenty of vertical space. So anything that's more narrow would probably be better. However, for a garage, this is just great. One other thing I would totally suggest if you do decide to get this and you're in an apartment like me is to also get a paper shredder, the best quality that you can afford, because you can take your leftover cardboard boxes and you can shred them. And what's really amazing about shredding them is that if you just put like regular cardboard in here, it will basically never break down. like 20 years later, it's gonna break down. But once you break it into those small pieces in those shreds, it's gonna do two things. So first of all, it's going to help keep all the food scraps you normally put in here from making the environment too wet for the worms. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that it will also break down much faster because they're smaller pieces, which allow for more surface area, which allows for more oxygen and the bacteria that break down everything, since it's more the bacteria inside the guts of the worms that break down the food scraps than say the worms like chomping down on cardboard. So yeah, just wanted to mention that, and they love cardboard, so pretty cool. The next thing I would do to prevent flies, and this was another mistake I made, so I did have flies come from this worm bin for a time, is you want to freeze your food scraps. Now, if you have this maybe in a garden shed, you might not care if there's flies, but most people, I mean, it's an urban worm bag, right? So most people don't have stuff like that. So you'll want to freeze your food scraps, which will kill off any fly eggs. And the additional advantage of that is that the food scraps are going to break down much faster. So, well, I don't know much faster, but yeah, I think I've noticed it's been significantly faster. So you put your food scraps in there, you put your bedding. The company themselves have done a fantastic job with the instructions and with how you keep up with it. So I won't really cover that a whole lot here. There is a link below, but I did want to cover some of the things they didn't really address and little critiques that I would change for next time. So definitely making it, if they make another version, making it prettier, making it more narrow so it could fit in small spaces. And then lastly is, this is just a tip to get cinder blocks and have it resting on cinder blocks. Not in this haphazard way that I did it though. Hold on. I'll move that later. I just did this, that's why it's like really kind of hanging off the edge. But anyway, and the reason for the cinder blocks is because when I was using this, I couldn't fit a bucket underneath. I could barely fit anything underneath. And then there wasn't enough room for me to actually zip up this thing when it got full, which was the other reason that I had flies, is flies then could get in, they could, you know, have a nest or whatever, and then they could fly out. So, so that is the next thing, is I would definitely have it up on cinder blocks. Outside of that, this has actually been amazing. It saved me a lot of work and frustration and struggle, which I have lots and lots and lots of trying to garden in a world that does not feel super supportive of that. So at least as an urban dweller. So yeah, I definitely recommend this if you have a garage or a roomy laundry room or something like that. And if you're really particular about what you put in there, frozen food scraps, shredded cardboard, zip it up. Yeah, and I think this can be super, super handy. So yeah, it's been great. I've used the worm castings and my plants have loved it. And it comes there, you know, with those worm castings have living bacteria and a whole little ecosystem you're adding to your plant versus store-bought stuff that might be, you know, worn out and you know, not have a whole lot left. So that's my review of the Urban Worm Bag. You can check them out in the description box below. I did not get paid for this promotion or anything like that. It's not really a promotion, it's actually kind of a critique, but I didn't get paid for this or anything. So it's just a completely honest review of my experience with this. So I hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching.